Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes podcast. My name is Audrey, I am a knitwear designer from the southwest of France, and this is a video podcast where I chat about everything that I am making. Welcome, I hope you're doing well. If you're new around here, I mostly make French videos now for about a year on this channel. They do come in English with English captions if you are able or willing to read those. And I try to make every season an English podcast again. So this is what we're doing now. Every 3-4 months I come and recap a bunch of things from the previous season. So today we are doing the Spring 2024 podcast where I have a ton of projects to share with you. And this is you could see my cat, who is a bit needy. So if he starts meowing, I apologize, but that's what we're doing. I'm also recording in a different place than usual because it's starting to get warm here. So I have started the game of trying to find a place in my house that has decent light but no sun. So that's what we have. I have a lot of things to say, so I'm going to start right away. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below, so if you want to skip anything or find a project in particular, feel free to look at this. I will also put links to everything that I talk about, the patterns and the yarns that I will be mentioning, as well as links to my social media. I am Yarnflakes on Instagram and Ravelry. So I'm going to start with all the designs that I have published since last we spoke. So I'm going to go back in time and move along until we catch up to now. So back in March, I published a shawl design, which I am very, very happy with. This is the Tramea shawl. Tramea is the name of a type of dragonfly. When I was working on this, I had no idea what name I wanted to use for the pattern, and a viewer kindly suggested to use Tramea because if you look at pictures of this butterfly, they have, not butterfly, dragonfly, they have, it's dragonfly, right? Loud purring. Loud purring is allowed. They have black and white stripes on their backs, so I thought that was very appropriate. And this is a triangular shawl which is worked from the top down, so you start with a garter tab cast on and then you increase on the sides and along a center spine, and all the borders and center spine are in garter stitch. The way I like to do most of my triangular shawls like this, I increase a lot more on the edge here, so that you end up with a shawl that is a little bit more proportionate in size. Often triangular shawls, they tend to get like very deep like this without having enough length on the sides. So by increasing a lot more here on this edge, you get sort of a curved top, like so. And this allows you to be able to wear this big shawl nicely, and you have quite, where's the end? Here, you have quite a lot of ends to wrap around your neck if you wish to wear it like this, kind of like a big bib. But yeah, this is a shawl that uses a minimum of 3 colors. You could do it in just 1 color, but if you're gonna use more than 1 color, you will need at least 3, because the first section is worked in this really nice stitch pattern, which is a garter base and stockinette stripe, which is fairly simple to work, so you're kind of getting your bearings as you're working the shaping of the shawl and getting used to what increases to do where. And the reason you need 3 colors is because you are only working 1 color per row, and so if you have like your color A, you're making your row 1, then you take your color B, you're working back the other way, then you take your color C and you go here and you are ready to pick up again color A, and it's at the right spot. So this is really, really fun to work. I have since used this in another design, which I will show you, I hope, at the end of the year. It's a collaboration, so I'm not quite sure. But it's a really fun pattern. You're essentially making 7 rows of garter and 1 row of stockinette, like 1 purl row, basically. 7 knits and 1 purl row. And I just really like the sort of tweed effect you get with the color blips. The second section of the shawl is this really fun slip stitch pattern. So again, you're only using 1 color at a time. You're alternating stripes with 2 of your colors, and you're making these garter lines and slip stitch squares. Also very intuitive to work. Once you've set up basically the position of each square, you can just count the number of garter lines that you have to make sure that you're on track for when you need to switch their place. I really, really enjoy working that pattern. Kind of want to work it again, maybe in a cardigan or something, because I really like this kind of striking graphic look, and it was really fun to work. Then you have a small band of, again, another slipped stitch motif, this time adding another color on top instead of the black. I'm using my gold here, and this is a more simple slip stitch, like you're making 1 row with little pearl bumps here in your contrast color. You are only using still 1 color at a time. All of this are slip stitch, kind of mosaic knitting, and no stranded knitting. And finally, the border of the shawl is a single color brioche with garter stripes. So just a few rows of brioche here. And I do personally think that single color brioche, when worked flat, is the easiest way to learn brioche if you've never done it before. Like, it's one of the stitches, I'm pretty sure if I didn't say the word brioche, a lot of people who are afraid to make brioche project because they're not learned it yet and they think it's difficult. I'm pretty sure if I didn't say that it's brioche, none of those people would bat an eye and just knit it, because it's very, very simple. If you're knitting in the round, I think having 2 color brioche is easier, because you at least can see your pearls because they're in the contrast color. But when working flat, having just 1 color, it means that you're knitting pretty normally, like you have none of that having to make twice the same row business. This is just really, really straightforward. And you finish with some garter rows. We'll work from the wrong side to have a little color blip at the end. And I just bound off knitwise using a stretchy bind off. Pretty much always use the same stretchy bind off. It is linked to the pattern. It's just the one where you knit 2 stitches and then you knit them again together through the back loop, and it gives a nice stretch, enough for shawl without flaring out. Since I'm here, I might as well show you the wrong side of the shawl, even though I don't think that with this shape it's not so much a problem, the wrong side, because it stays put quite nicely, but just in case, here it is. And yeah, this is a fairly accessible pattern. All the patterns that you see, all those textures, are both charted and written, and so you can find whatever is most convenient for you. Stop trying to get into the cupboard. You don't like it there. It's a rescue cat, so it's a little bit clingy, aren't you? Yeah. I made mine using sport weight yarn, so it made like a really plump and luscious shawl, very comfy and warmer. But a lot of my testers have just used fingering weight, and you could do this as well, just keeping, either you keep the same gauge as the patterns, which will make something a little bit loose, a little bit drapier, but nothing odd for a shawl. You could also use DK weight if you want something even rounder and even more warm. However, if you're using DK weight, you will need more than 100 grams. Just make sure to check the meterage for each color. I used yarns from 2 indie dyers, so I had bought this beautiful color. It's giving more gold, and you have no business going on top there, so I don't know why you want to. It is. It's like I have a mix between a puppy and a toddler. It's more green in real life. It's kind of like a bronzy or lime yellowy green. This is from Black Elephant, which is a UK-based dyer. One of my favorite dyers. I think she's one of the first dyers that I bought yarn from years ago, and I absolutely love her work. I think she does a fantastic job, both at really subtle, rich tonals, and also she's really fun with variegated yarns. But I had bought this skein along with another color because I wanted to make a colorwork project together. But I found that this wasn't quite the right shade that I wanted because the other color was a darker green and it was for a colorwork project, which I still haven't figured out quite exactly what I want to do. So it wasn't enough contrast. So I was left with this skein, and I had finished about at the same time as I was planning this design. I had just finished my Andelion and the Lion sweater, which I test knitted for Sophie Okera, which I talked about in the previous English podcast, I believe. And this was a colorwork sweater which I made. I tried to put a picture here if I remember, which I made in black, gold and white. The original design is like this as well, so I am a color copycat. I'm not very good at coming up with color combinations on my own. And I am loving this association. So this is slightly different because it's black, grey, and not so much gold, but more like a greenish, yellow, bronzy color. But I just really like it. I went to Woolissime, which is a French indie dyer, which does dyed to order yarns, and she has a variety of bases. And I know that she does a lot of good neutrals, so I went to look what I could buy from her. And indeed, she has the exact same base. So this is just superwash merino, right? Which is nice for these like very crisp definitions. And I also wanted my boyfriend to be able to wear this because it's soft enough. And this, it's 300 meters per 100 grams. So I know that they have the same base. So that's why I went to Woolissime and ordered the black and light gray color. The names of the color escapes me. I think from the Black Elephant dyer, this was Cornfields. And I think this is nearly black and possibly Galet, which is pebble. I'm not sure. I will write all the details in the description. Editing Audrey has a lot more brain space than filming Audrey's. And I just really like the result. I'm really happy with this shawl. It's one of the designs that it's better than what I had in mind as I was working on it. It's not always the case. There's another one that I'm going to show you, which is not released yet, but I just finished the sample and I love it. It's, yeah. Usually, like, of course I like what I'm designing. If not, I wouldn't bother, right? But it's quite rare whenever something like exceeds my expectations and I am actually really proud of it. Like, you know, I was picturing this, and when it's blocked and finished, and in the case of a garment, I put it on, I get this. And it's nice sometimes to be properly proud of what you're doing. And this was one of those cases. And I've seen lovely versions since the design has been released. I had some testers that used like a bright pink and blue and white, and it's lovely. I think it looks really nice in really vibrant colors. I've seen people use variegated yarns as well, which is really fun. And some people use more colors. So this is kind of a good shawl to use heavy leftovers because, like I said, you need 3 colors here at least. And here you could alternate. I have a tester who did this. She switched colors after every line, so she was able to use many more colors. And hello again. And yeah, it turns out really, really nice. Whether you're going for something very graphic like I did, or whether you're wanting a little bit more of a varied multicolor project. So yes, that is it. I'm going to try not to spend 15 minutes on every design, because if not, we are going to be here for a while. And Mota does not like it here, my cat. Yes, he's the same name than the yarn from Spanish brand Wool Dreamers, but I did not name him. That is the name that he had at the refuge. Did we get him partly because of that? Maybe. No. He chose us like many cats do. We just entered the cat area in the shelter door and he instantly jumped on my partner. So yeah, I have another design. Which order can I do this in? I'm actually going to start with what I'm wearing now. This is a design that I released in April, I guess, which is the Aconite tee. So this is a spring light pullover / t-shirt, because you could do any length sleeve that you like. This is a drop shoulder, as you can see. I'm gonna have to raise a little bit more that to show the people the garment, and then you can come back. So this is worked from the top down. You start with the front, you cast on here, and it's a drop shoulder with the shoulder line on the shoulder, not at the back. So you work a few short rows to have a really nice and quite heavily pronounced shoulder slope. Then you work this low scoop neck, which you can easily adjust. If you want something that's a little bit closer, you can knit more or less length here before starting the increases. Then you join the fronts, you work until the bottom of the armhole. I am coming. And then you pick up stitches from the back of the shoulders. You work the back as well. Then you join everything and you work the body in the round straight. I made mine cropped because this is what suits my body type better. But of course the length is perfectly adjustable. And then you pick up stitches around the armhole to work the sleeves. And I worked some short row shaping at the sleeves to have a really nice fit. I am really happy with this fit. I think it's my preferred. Where am I going to sit now? This is my preferred, I think this is my best fitted loose drop shoulder that I did. So this, if you don't like it, you don't have to. Lots of my testers did not do the short rows. It's not going to change your life, but it does prevent extra fabric here at the underarm, because as you can see, you have more here, which makes the shoulder drop a little bit more and add length without adding bulk here. So even though this is pretty oversized, I have about 15 centimeter positive ease, this does not have an awkward bump. It does have a fold because this was folded just before I started filming. But yeah, and then I made elbow length sleeves. They are straight and you just make a few decreases before the cuff. And all the finishing edges of the top are worked in half twisted rib, and then you have some rolled stockinette here everywhere, which I really like at the moment. So the top is worked in this kind of slipped stitch pattern stripes. I really love it. These are stripes that I used in a shawl design a few years ago, the Grossa shawl. And again, I'm in the mood for like textured stripes, you know, this type of thing, this type of thing. This is just a 2-stitch repeat, so it's really, really nice. And you will have to maintain the pattern yourself as you're doing the increase. And it's really easy to do so because it's only 2 stitches. And due to the nature of the pattern, if you're offsetting, I do believe I had one mistake at some point. If you're not placing your 2 stitches right, if you're not starting properly, it just looks intentional, because the point of it is to create blips of texture. So you have purl stitches here, and then you have slip stitches with the yarn in front. So you're creating these sort of horizontal line in your stripes. And it's really fun to work. I really like doing this. And again, I use just one color. You could use any number of color you want, changing colors at every stripe. And yeah, so you have lots of options with this. You could also work the texture stripe if you want here while you're doing the short rows. It's just because you're using colored stripes, you will have to bring back your yarn at the beginning of the round at some point. It's doable. I just wanted it to remain a little bit more accessible, and I kind of liked how with working the short rows it made that my stripes were aligned afterwards here on the body. But yeah, so this is worked in fingering weight at a rather small gauge. It's 27 stitches per 10 centimeter. I think that's it. I think that's 27. And I have used Knitting for Olive cotton merino, and I absolutely love it. It made the loveliest light fabric. I have since then decided to make like 5 other garments using this yarn because I really like it. It's the perfect spring yarn for me, or like summer that's not too hot yet, because it is made of 70% cotton and 30% merino, which is a lot of cotton. Usually cotton merino blends, it's at best it's 50-50, or it's more wool, but this is more cotton, and it's so fine, and like it doesn't have the stiffness of cotton because of the merino content and because of how fine it is. It is a light fingering weight, like most Knitting for Olive's fingering weight yarns. It has 250 meters per 50 grams, so light fingering, but it just made a lovely light fabric. And I've been wearing this in like 25 to 30 degrees weather. It is going to be 30 something today. I am, when you're watching this, you know where I'm in Norway, because I'm running away from this nonsense for a week. It will be our first time in Norway. We're going to Bergen. I have no idea what's gonna happen. what we're gonna do, if it's gonna be okay, but at least it won't be hot. That I can tell. And yeah, it is very pleasant to wear. So I'm planning a few camisoles. I'll show you another project that I'm test knitting for another designer in this yarn. I really like it. In mid-May, they relaunched the yarn with new colors, and I'm so glad that they're not discontinuing it because it is lovely. I used the colors Piglet, which is this kind of beigey pink. It is more pink in real life than what it shows on camera. It is like a light blush pink, but very light. It's more beige than pink, but you do still see the pink hue. And my contrast color is dusty blue whale, and I really like it. I plan to make a few other tops using this shape, not necessarily using the stripes, but I'm just really happy with the more open neckline for spring, and I'm someone who tends to like quite closed neck, so I'm happy to have found like a balance that I like with the relaxed drop shoulder and a more scoop neckline that isn't too low for my taste either, but fresh enough. So yes, this will work in a lot of different yarns. Some people have used just wool, some people have used linen, which works really well. The pure silk from Knitting for Olive also, and any other type of kind of drapey yarn will work nicely. I think I've said everything about Aconite, so you could help. You could have like a little notepad that you could point what I forgot to say, instead of just keeping me unreasonably warm. Next up, in May, I released a kind of double pattern. I tend to like having different options whenever possible in my patterns, and I've been wanting to make a satin top design that could both function as a sleeveless top and as a t-shirt if you were to work sleeves. And this is it. This is Sophorine. So it is a v-neck. You start from the top again and you work short rows to make a tiny slope. Then you work the v-neck and the armholes. So the challenge with this was that I wanted to have the same armhole shaping both for the sleeveless top and for the t-shirt, which I will show you in a minute. And it's quite difficult because for a sleeveless top you tend to want a slightly different depth and a slightly lower increases than what you want in the proper fitted satin sleeve. So I'm quite happy with what I was able to achieve. This is a fitted garment and I really recommend that you do not pick too much ease, really 5 centimeter positive ease, that is difficult, maximum, and preferably some negative ease around the bust so that the top stays well fitted. This does not mean that you need something that is really fitted on your belly. I will talk about that in a bit. But as you choose your size, really pick something that has negative ease, because satin sleeves designs, they just don't really work with a lot of room. It just makes like the upper body not well seated. The setting shoulder sleeves is supposed to really match is supposed to really match your shoulder joint, and you don't want it to droop a little bit too much, because then you're gonna have weird folds everywhere. So yeah, I had some testers who chose a size too big because they didn't want to have something fitted on their belly, and I don't recommend that you do that. For a satin sleeve garment, really pick something that is going to be well fitted here. Check the crossback measurement in the pattern, check the shoulder width, etc., so that you're sure that it matches you. And then later you can adjust, because once you've done all the armhole shaping and everything, you join in the round to work the body, and you can work increases here if you want something to give a slight A-line, so that if it doesn't it doesn't cling. Why sting? It doesn't cling to your waist or belly if that's not what you want. The pattern also includes short row bust stars, which you work horizontally here to give a little bit more room over the bust. If you're someone who has a big difference between your full bust and your upper bust, usually if you're over a C cup, if you're a C cup or over that, usually it's a good idea. It will prevent the front hem of your... Can you not hook your clothes onto my knitting? It will prevent the front hem of the top to ride up. And yeah, so you work whatever length you want. And like I said, you can add increases to make an A-line. As long as the upper body is fitted, it will fall very nicely. Or the finishing is in half twisted rib. You have a center double decrease at the point of the v-neck, and if you're choosing the topless, I am not able to speak today. The sleeveless top. I'm trying to rush the thing, so I'm gonna just stop and try to say proper things. You have a double decrease as well here on the underarm, just so that you can see it curves upwards nicely and you don't have it sticking out, which can be a little bit awkward. So that's my sleeveless version, and here is the tee. And so Same thing, but when it comes to working the sleeves, you are working a satin sleeve from the top down, which means you pick up stitches around the armhole and then you work short rows here to shape the sleeve cap on the top of the shoulder. And once you're done with that, you can work the sleeve in the round. You can make it them longer if you want, and there is some shaping at the top of the sleeve here with decreases, and again at the underarm to make the sleeve fall nicely and be like a fitted short sleeve. So that's the T version. Now you can see that I've done some stripes. I wanted the design to just be fully customizable. You can do whatever stripes you want. So you can do color stripes or you can do these purl stripes here. It's just one row of purl stitches, and I've chose to do it only on the upper body on my t-shirt version, but of course you can do whatever you want. And on my top version I've chose to do collar stripes. And you can mix them. I have a tester who did a lovely version where she had also the purl stripe going in the middle of her collar stripes. You can use a variety of color. I have a tester who was super smart and made with the purl stripes. I think she did the sleeveless version, but basically she had her purl stripes. Once she was on the body, she had them disappear on one side and create a really fun angle with the purl lines stopping slowly until the bottom of her top. And yeah, it's just highly customizable. You can do any length stripe you want, any number of colors, so you do you. The pattern includes tips on how to manage different things, how to manage the color jog if you want to avoid it at the beginning of the round if you're working color straps, how to manage your see, this is my beginning of the round, I chose to carry my yarns, and the pattern also helps you kind of fix your upper body length in case your row gauge is different from the patterns, which is often a problem. The pattern gives you tips on how to make sure that you have the correct v-neck and armhole depth here. So it's a simple design, but there's lots of modification, and it's just yeah, a little customizable v-neck sleeveless top or tee. I am planning to make a couple other of the top version. I have some interesting colors, like I have green, pink and gold, which I think would be fun, like very 70s. I think they will be fun together. So did I forget to mention something? Yes, if you're working the short row bust darts, because you can do whatever stripes you want, the pattern does not, I did not calculate for each size, for each cup, for each stripe possibility, which are endless. If you want to maintain the stripe pattern, it's fairly intuitive to do. If you're, because the thing is, when you're working the bust darts, you're working flat on the front, right? So you're adding length to the front. So if you want to maintain your stripe pattern, you'll have to do this on your own, or just accept that you're gonna have a slightly wider stripe at the bust. Some of my testers have done that. I think it looks fine. It's a good compromise, I think, to have a proper fit. But if you do want to adjust the stripe pattern, it's fairly intuitive to see how you can, where you need to stop. It's just, yeah, it's just gonna depend a little bit on the types of stripes that you choose to make. So, I mean, not a little bit, it's going to depend on the type of stripes that you're making. So, because the pattern is just whatever stripes, if you are working stripes on the body and you plan to do the short rows, just know that it's not calculated in the pattern for every possibility. So that's it. This is a sport weight gauge. It's 23 stitches per 10 centimeter, but you can use any in fingering weight. You will just get something a little bit looser, lighter as well, more appropriate for the summer. And if you're using a DK weight that has a bit of drape, for example with plant fibers DK weight. I think it works as well very well. I have used Purl Soho Santolina, which is a very interesting yarn. So it's a blend of cotton, hemp and viscose rayon, and it's very weird. I think if you have tried working with plant fibers and you find that it does not work for you, it's too stiff on your hands, and because they have no elasticity, right, they get a bit uncomfortable to work. So if you find that that was the case for you, maybe this could be a nice one to try, because when knitting with it, it just really felt like, I don't know that you can hear whatever it is that's happening. I'm going to close the doors. Someone is just starting and restarting their motorcycle. So it just feels like wool when you're knitting with it. It has that sort of plumpness, and it has a bit of elasticity. I think mixing the sturdiness of cotton with the drape of hemp and the sort of sleekness of viscose rayon, it ends up feeling almost like an animal fiber. Like, not the wooliest, like it's not like so pleasant like this, but I think it is very surprising to knit with. It also makes it not very cool to wear, so it's definitely too warm of a fabric for me to wear when it's gonna be hot here in the summer. So for me, this is definitely a spring project. I really hope you can't hear it. It's quite I have to film now, and it's a little bit of a bad timing for whatever this person is trying to do. So yeah, I do recommend it if you don't live in a place that gets too warm, or if you're looking for a springtime type of yarn that is going to be pleasant to work with. And it has some lovely colors. I really like this kind of reddish orange, which is Redbreast. This is the Heirloom white, and the beige was Beige Bunny. I am definitely planning on working with this yarn again. I have a blue, a lovely, like kind of juniper blue, that I plan to make a little something similar to this, like a 3/4 length sleeves, light pullover. I think this yarn is working well for me, or as a small top to be worn under shirts or cardigans when it's 20-ish degrees Celsius. It's fine. But yeah, so this is Sophorine, which is my little basic v-neck pattern, satin sleeves, and with wider straps if you're planning to make the sleeveless version. It does cover the bra straps, etc, etc. So yes. And for one last garment, one last new pattern, garment pattern that I released, this is a loose cardigan. So this is Atul, which I'm gonna have to, it just looks too weird if it's not on. This is Atul, so it's a textured oversized sleeveless cardigan. It is the type of thing that I love to wear in the summer, because I will wear like very small camisoles or like just with very thin straps, and I like to have an open shirt on top of it. And I've been wanting to make a textured cardigan like this. I have a lace pattern that is similar, and I really love it. I wear it all the time. It's my Lino pattern. Again, we'll try to put a picture. But it's all over lace, and I know a lot of people, I've talked with a lot of people who like to knit this for themselves, but they're a bit intimidated by the overall lace, and it's also quite long to knit. So I've decided to make a textured version which is a bit more simpler. It ends up still being a relatively long project, but I absolutely love it. So this is worked top down. It's one of those cardigans that is you start with just a rectangle for the back and you work the back until the armhole depth, then you pick up stitches here and you leave just a few, 3 stitches here opening so that it's never gonna slide off your shoulder. And then you work the fronts, and the fronts have a cable at the edge. Then you join the fronts and the back together under the arm, you work the body whatever length you want. And then all the finishes are again in half twisted rib. You do the hem, you pick up to work some edgings here at the armholes, and you pick up along the neckband to stabilize it and to work a little bit of a finish. You could also make an I-cord, lots of my testers have done that. Or you could just crochet, you know, make like single crochets along. And yeah, this is worked in an all-over texture. It's kind of a cartridge belt. I really like that texture. And it's really fun because you can work it in so many different ways. You can do this alternating 3x1 ribbing, or like I did here, using slipped stitches. So it's a 4-stitch repeat, which makes it fairly intuitive. It is reversible also. So you're essentially doing knits and slip stitches with yarn in front, though, which makes it a little bit sturdier. The slip stitches will make something that is pretty dense, which means that you have quite odd row gauge. This is a 24 stitch per 10 centimeter stitch gauge, and the row gauge is 40, I think. Yeah, because of the slipped stitches. But this means that you can use a really drapey summer plant fiber yarn and it's still gonna hold its shape. This does take a little bit to knit, but it's very meditative. As you can easily read your knitting, you can just see the columns of knit stitches and it really helps you see where you are. And since you're always doing the same thing, it just zooms by. The cable also is fairly intuitive. This is half of the cable that I used in my ocean-born designs. Basically, I just split it in half, and if you just put them back together, you can see kind of like how it looks. We'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, I just split it in half and put it on the edge of the cardigan. It's just simple 4-stitch cable, so crossing 2 stitches over 2. And some of the cables have a purl background, but it's 8 rows. So intuitive and simple, in fact, that I did a mistake in my cable because I wasn't paying attention. Of course. Of course. You know, when you're knitting something that is a little bit more demanding attention-wise and you're like really focused and following the pattern, you don't do mistakes. But when something is a little bit more intuitive, then you just, yeah, attention issue. I've noticed this when I blocked it. I have filmed in the last English podcast, the mistake was there and I showed it to you and I did not notice. I did not notice. I edited the podcast, I did not notice. I took a lot of pictures and you know, it's a design, so you're looking at it a lot. I did not notice. Until I blocked it. I might fix it at some point in the future, but at the moment I just thought, you know, embrace the mistake. And I just decided to take this as an opportunity to kind of like make a point that mistakes are not in knitting are not just because you're a beginner. I often see people who stop themselves from making the projects that they want because they think that, oh, I don't have the level for it, and or like they're intimidated because they're afraid of making mistakes, and they're like, so what? You know, everyone makes mistakes. It's an attention issue more than a knowledge or skill issue. In most cases, mistakes like that happen in knitting, and it might sound a little bit discouraging to say this. It's like, yeah, you're never gonna have a point in your knitting where you're gonna be like, oh, that's good, I'm an expert now, I know everything, I can do everything. It's never gonna happen. Especially if you don't dare to do the things that you want to do because you think that they might be too difficult. Like there's not a threshold that you need to pass, and I think a lot of us have this imaginary line where you're like, oh, when I get there I will be able to do this. No, that's not a thing. Like there's not a click, now you're perfect. Yeah, that's not a thing. And yeah, like I said, it might be a bit discouraging because like, okay, I'm always going to make mistakes. But the thing is, if you're a perfectionist and if you can't live with that, I think it's really admirable to have the perseverance to restart and fix your mistake. I think there's a lot of beauty in making something just the way you want it. And if you're not a perfectionist, well, you just buy a brooch and you stick it in front of your mistake. But yeah, I considered for a while what I was going to do with this, and I remember this creator, which is she has a Etsy shop. She's a German maker, and I have quite a few of her earrings. She makes beautiful illustrations, and she makes sort of this like drawings things. And I remember that she also sells brooches. And I like the idea of brooches, but I never really wear them. So I thought, hey, that's the opportunity to support her and get something that's nice and just hide my laziness and mistakes. And now someone is breaking cement. That is just perfect. Perfect timing for me to have to record this podcast, but yes. The yarn that I used is Lino from Lana Grossa, and it's a blend of viscose, of recycled linen viscose and linen. And it's a lovely summer yarn. I have used this in the past. It is very flimsy and very soft and fresh to wear. So you do need to make garments that have a bit of structure with it. But when you do, it just makes a lovely, lovely fabric. I like how smooth it is, which, you know, didn't help with the mistake being super visible. But I really, really like its definition. It's a sport weight yarn. It's all right to wear up until 30-35 degrees. It's fine. If I have something that has quite a bit of ease, and that is not like to... You can't really make something that's really clinging to you because it's so drapey. It's just gonna droop anyway. But I really like it. And it comes in beautiful colors, which like it's not a perfect example because it's just slightly greenish gray, but it has a beautiful range and I like it. It's quite affordable as well. I think it's €6 a ball. And you get 120 meters, I think, per 50-gram ball. So yeah, this is Atul. This was my birthday design of this year. You can see that I'm not very good at weaving in my ends. I usually do it kind of roughly like this, then I block the garment and then I go back. And with plant fibers, what I like to do is I like to split the yarns and then weave them in different direction, going back in, make a knot and cut that quite short. And I haven't had the time to do this yet, which is why this looks horrible. But this, I'm really happy with this. I do plan on making a few more designs like this because I just wear those all the time, those kind of loose cardigans. And I promise that the next time I do one, it's not going to be it's actually going to be faster to knit because yeah, this is easier than the overall lace one, but it still requires a bit of patience. And yeah, so that is it for all the new garment designs. I have a couple of sock designs that I released. I am still working on every year I try to make like a bunch of sock designs using the same yarn in different colors, and I try to have a theme which is more or less clear. And this year, I don't know, I kind of wanted to play with textured details and incorporate details in a fun way in socks. And this is a design that I released in April or May, I forgot. These are the Hidaelle socks, and they're an all over chevron type of lace socks. They're worked cuff down, and this is the detail that I liked, which is the same thing that what I'm wearing here. Basically, you have a rolled stockinette bit and then a 2x2 ribbed cuff, and then you get into the chevron lace. So this is a really, really fun kind of potato chippy texture, because you only have like 2 rows of lace, and then it's just knits and purls, right? And you create this sort of chevron shape with like reverse stockinette in some point. So it's just eyelets and a double decrease. There are 2 ways to make the double decrease. I've put a video in the pattern in case you're not comfortable doing knit 3 together on such a small gauge, for socks. Knit 3 together. Depending on how tight you knit, it can be quite uncomfortable. So I've just put a video to where you basically do a slipped stitch that you pass over while still keeping the right leaning decrease. So it makes it really, really easy to knit. This is graded for a few different sizes so that it goes all around. There are 2 heels to choose from in the pattern, a heel flap and gusset like I did here, or short row, German short row heel. Both instructions are included in the pattern. I recommend that you size up for these. Most of my testers found that the texture did tighten the fabric a little bit. So either you size up or you make sure that you get maybe 1 size needle up compared to what you usually work for socks, and try on the socks after you've worked like 1 or 2 repeats so that you can be sure that it fits over your foot. So this is one of the sock pattern that I released in spring. And the second one, which is actually new, I just released it last week, mid-June. These are the Loretta socks, and these are also cuff down. All of my sock patterns, I don't like toe up. These are also worked cuff down, and you have this nice lace and cable detail on the cuff. This is a really fun stitch pattern. It's a Japanese inspired pattern, and I used it in a design that is published in a magazine right now and will be republished later. But I just really like it because it's reversible. So this area here, which is blending in, I've blended it into stockinette for the sock, but usually you actually go back to the half twisted ribbing here, and you can see that it's basically the same. This point here is the same as here. And I really like that because it's really convenient to work this lace in various situations, like you do if you're making sleeves, etc. Like this would be a really good lace to make a bottom-up garment with still working the sleeves top down, because you could reverse the lace perfectly and you wouldn't have the difference in the stitch pattern direction. It's a fairly simple pattern, half twisted rib, eyelets and simple decreases, and you have a few cables, like just 2 rows of cables, and they're 2x2 knit cables, so very easy to work with. And yeah, and then it's just the rest is just in stockinette. Again, same 2 heels to choose from. Oh, and I do a rounded toe on my socks. That's the toe that I prefer to work, which it's not as trapezoidal as the wedge toe. It's actually a little bit more curved, but of course you can do whatever toe you like. And you could also replace with any other short row heel that you prefer. I personally like the German short row heel. I know lots of people have issues with it, making holes and etc. I never did. So the heel flap and gusset is my favorite heel, but I will often do German short row heel. I'm actually going to talk about it in a bit, and I quite like it as well. But you can use the fish lips kiss heel, you can use the shadow wrap, like there's so many heels that kind of look similar to the short row heel, and it works better for some people. But yeah, this is also graded so that it goes around. The only thing is, after you've done the lace, some sizes will have to move the beginning of the round because you have a nice lines of extra stitches here, which makes kind of a nice detail along the back of your leg. It changes depending on the size, but you just have to move your beginning of the round so that this ends up being on the back of your leg, and then you have the lace that flows and that is centered on the top of the leg all around. Some sizes have a good some more ribbing in between, and yeah, I've just done that. I've just did that so that the lace would run all around. And so these are the Loretta sock, and both of those designs are worked in Lana Grossa Meilenweit Seta, which is their merino nylon silk sock yarn. Fingering weight sock yarn. It is fairly sturdy. I don't quite see the silk. I've tried other silk sock yarns and they're really shiny and they tend to peel a little bit. These don't. Yeah, I don't quite see the sheen that I would expect from a sock yarn with silk. I guess it just adds a little bit of strength to the fiber, and yeah, that's nice. It's not necessarily more expensive than a non-silk sock yarn, so it's €10, it's $9.99 100 gram. So yeah, these are the couple of sock designs that I've published in spring, and I have one last design to share, and this is actually a new sample from for a design that was published a few years ago, and this is the Poecile cardigan. This is a raglan cardigan with lace sleeves. The original design had elbow-length sleeves and pockets at the front of the cardigan, as well as garter edges all around. And as soon as I finished the design, the pattern always included instructions on how to make longer sleeves and how to gather them at the cuff. But I've been wanting to make for myself a long sleeve version for a while. And I was contacted at the end of last year by Nice Yarns, which is a new yarn brand. It is made by the people behind Punk Rock Unicorn yarns, the indie dyed yarns. And they've asked me if I wanted to try out the new yarn as they were releasing it, and so I thought it was a good match because this is a superwash merino nylon yarn. And this is the colorway Dirty District, which is a really, really nice thread. It comes off very orangey here. When I took pictures, it looks pink. It is just red. Okay. And yes, this is a very good merino superwash nylon. It's like, it has a great definition. It's very plump compared to the other merino nylon blends like this, like the Filcolana Argueta, for example, Lang Yarn, Shawl, etc. It's a lot plumper. It is closer to hand-dyed types of bases, and yeah, it was very, very pleasant to knit with. I am looking forward to wearing it in the autumn and see how the yarn ages. Like, it again was folded. I'm sorry. I'm not very careful with how I fold my garments. But yeah, it also blocked really nicely. It didn't grow at all when blocking, and the lace placed itself. I didn't have to pin the lace open, which is really, really nice. So the pattern has the sleeve fully charted with the raglan increases and the lace that is incorporated, so it's really, really easy to follow. You really don't have to think too much, and it's a lovely cathedral looking lace with half twisted rib and eyelets and decreases, and I really, really like it. And it blocked really well. It kind of had that effect like single yarns do, where they just spread on their own and you don't need to pin it to open the lace, which was lovely, because if I had to pin this, then I would have had weird pinch on top of the sleeve, and I don't so much, so that's nice. So yeah, I am very happy with the knitting experience of the yarn, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it behaves. It is very soft. I do think it's a bit expensive. It's 11 euros a ball of 50 grams, so it's basically the same price as hand-dyed here in Europe, at least. I know in North America, hand-dyed now leans more into the 30-35 euros, dollars or euros. We're very close at the moment. It's gain, but yeah, here this yarn, if it makes 22 euros per 100 grams, it is about the same price as hand-dyed yarn, but this is an industrial yarn, so it's a bit on the pricey side. I do think if you're working on a project that has mostly hand-dyed yarns and you need a solid color for contrast, like I don't know, you're working color work or you're working a shawl and you want a solid color, but you want something that is very close in quality and in feel to the merino nylon hand-dyed yarn that you already have for the project. I do think it's a good choice for this, but as far as full project goes, for me it's a little bit above my budget. But if your budget is better than mine, it is a very good yarn. And if I forget to, in a few seasons, let you know if I noticed any peeling or something, do ask me, because I want to keep track of that and let you know how it aged, because yeah, I am expecting high quality for it, and the knitting didn't disappoint, and just have to see now how it wears. So I have done a few modifications compared to the original design. I've just worked ribbing instead of the garter edging, and I didn't do the pockets. And I also kept it open. So I'm gonna pass it on, even though it's gonna be awkward with the other sleeves under it, but at least you get an idea. But yeah, I haven't worked buttonholes because I plan to just wear it open like this. I have updated the pattern with the ribbed instruction as well. So just kind of the balloon effect. This is silly, but that's it for my new sample of the Poecile cardigan. Poecile was the name of a bird, and I just thought it really matched the flowy lace sleeves. And my initial sample was in a light brown yarn, which matched said bird. Sometimes I have reasons for how I name my patterns, sometimes I don't. But yeah. And when I do have reasons, they're not that deep. And that's it for the propaganda of the 2 billion designs I released and wanted to show you. I have a couple of upcoming projects that I want to share with you. The first one is actually a sample that I just finished, and I wanted to show it to you because that's the one that I said I am so proud of it. Listen, I just want to scream about it because I am so happy with it. It's a bit silly because my sample is finished and the pattern isn't going to be released until September. So I don't know why I'm showing it to you now, but I don't know, sabotaging my own marketing strategy. This is... okay, so have done this yoke 5 times, no, 3 times. This is a colorwork yoke, which is work from the top down, and I wanted basically a Christmas or holiday jumper that was not so holiday. So I have worked holiday colors with the reddish brown, the emerald green, white and gold, but I've placed them in a more subtle way, you could say, even though really what is subtle about this, I don't know. But, this is a design where you could use the colors any way you want, and for example, I had in mind for that I could have switched the contrast color here and used the white here, but here I could have used the green, and here I could have used the red. That would have made it a little bit too holiday, and I wanted to be able to wear it in other, like, as if I wouldn't have been able to wear whatever I want whenever I want. But you know, I really liked how it looked in white and gold. So what I've done is I've done a fun striped detail with the twisted, half twisted ribs. So you just make 2 row stripes, alternating the colors, and I've kept the color blips. You know, I haven't corrected the jog that you get in the Purl lines, because I kind of like the sort of kind of jagged line effect that it has. And I've done this so on the collar. So this is a slightly more looser fitted collarwork yoke than what I usually do. I have troubles with the fit of collarwork yoke. I find that I want ease, but it doesn't look good with my shoulders. I don't know, it cuts my shoulder often if it's too loose, and if the neckline is not very tight, I think it doesn't work really well with my shape. So I tend to design collarwork yokes that are very fitted, because that's something that I found works best for me, and that is for me easier to manage the grading for all the sizes. I really wanted to try and make something a little bit looser. So this is what I did here. The neckline is slightly more open than what I usually do. Then you work short rows on the back of the neck, and then you have the yoke, which, like I said, I did 3 times. The first time that I had to frog was because I wasn't satisfied with just the beginning here of the yoke. The way I grade these, like in the past few years, the way I've graded my collarwork yokes is I'm making a cone shape, basically, because you can make stripes and do the increases in between, or you can have like something that starts like this and that then increases like this. See, and this is what I'm doing here. But the thing is, as you're working increases here, you're working quite a lot of them, and if you place them too close or in like just above or just below a shape, then you're distorting that shape, and it's a bit difficult for me to be able to visualize the result, because I'm gonna look at my chart and I don't know, I'm gonna make a round, you know, but if I have an increase just after that round, then it's not a round anymore. So I had to redo this part a little bit until I was satisfied with a little patterning that looked good as I was increasing. Then I did the entire yoke, split for sleeves, tried it on, and realized I looked like one of those lizards, you know, that have the collar that goes up. So another thing with collarwork yokes is that I don't think I have particularly broad shoulders, but I do have often the problem that there's not enough increases quickly here. And so, you know, this is what happens when you have collarwork yokes that are a bit too tight around your shoulders, and you have this like sort of fold that stays here because you don't have enough room here. So I always try to increase rapidly here so that you have enough room at the shoulders, and this also makes it a unisex. My collarwork yoke are all unisex. because like a more stereotype, like it's not like clothes don't have gender. Okay, but I think that a lot of men, when they want to knit for themselves, they're really worried that the shoulder is not going to be wide enough. But the thing is, I also need wider shoulder, and I know a lot of women who also have that broader need for their shoulders. So I like to increase faster here because I just think it suits most body types better, including stereotypically male body types. But I kind of overdid it, right? And so instead of having the good like curve like it has here, you know, it goes out quickly enough, but then it's still a normal shape. It was doing this, so I had like that lizard thing that was going up like this. No. So I regraded my yoke properly, spreading like the last rows of decreases. I spread them a little bit further to get the correct rate, and then it worked, and I am very happy with the fit. So these have a couple of patterning. So you can see the yoke pattern is then repeated on the body, sort of a geometrical shell type of pattern. And I wanted to have that, like those sort of lines interrupted, because the cat does not understand that I need to do this video. I am working to buy your ridiculously expensive food. So when you're finished with the increases, it's still fairly shallow, so you have room to adapt the yoke depth if you want a deeper one, or if your row gauge is off, you have a little bit more control. So that's why I always like to introduce a simple type of pattern that you can stop whenever you're ready. Oh, what's wrong? Whenever you're ready to split for sleeves. And I have reused that pattern on the sleeves, and it's just simple lines and dots, and I really like the sort of visual effect it has. It's kind of nice. And so I have done the hem again with the striped ribbing. And what are you looking for? Where did you go? I've done loose cuffs, so I've been wanting to try something different. I didn't want them to be balloon and gathered here, so I've tried to, there's a little bit of decreases here at the end, but I wanted to keep them fairly straight. And I love how it fits. I wasn't sure I was going to keep this because it's kind of difficult, you know, when you have a loose cuff, you need to have them at the right length. Even though I do see that it's kind of trendy now to have the cuff like very long so that you can wrap your hands inside it if you're cold. For me, I'm always pushing my sleeves back up because I hate having my sleeves stuck here without being able to push them. So that's why I almost always do bracelets length sleeves. And so having loose cuffs was another potential issue because they can get everywhere. So it was a bit difficult to figure out the right length for me, but I did, and I am really, really happy with how it fits. I am enchanted. And I'm gonna make another one. And this time I will have a classic cuff because both options will be in the pattern and I want to showcase both. And the second one, like, it's gonna look something like this, right, at the end. The other one I'm going to make in black and white because I just see this in black and white for some reason. But I am very, very pleased with this design. It is a sport weight colorwork yoke. It's 24 stitches per 10 centimeter gauge, and it should normally be released in September. and I just wanted to show it to you because I really like it, and also because at the moment I'm working on secret designs for publications, so I can't show you any design in progress. So that's why I'm showing you this, which is finished, and an upcoming design, which I only have a swatch for. I need to reach it. I'm gonna start my next sock design, and I have a funny swatch here. It's going to be kind of a patchwork sock. So these textures are not final. I believe I'm going to replace the green one here. But I just wanted to show you this fun little swatch where I use scraps for this. So yeah, I want to make a sock with a bunch of different textures. So this is going to be the cuff. It's a garter rib. Is it a garter rib or a broken rib? I always get it wrong. One of my testers very kindly corrected me in a previous sock designs. I think broken rib is only 1x1 and garter rib is 2x2. Is that correct? I need to check again. But yeah, the ribbing, which has one every other row is just knits. And then this kind of floats triangle situation is going to be on the leg. Then I had tried to have this slip stitch motif, but I think I will replace it with just a 2x2 rib, and it's going to be on the instep. So at the end of the leg and first half of the foot. I just did this to kind of symbolize the heel, and I'm going to make a short row heel here. And then you have this, which is going to be the second part of the foot with the dots. It's just a dotted stockinette in like a offset pattern, and then the toe is just going to be in stockinette. So this is fun, but I'm going to make it just in one color because I've learned that if I'm silly with colors, people don't project themselves. I still am unable to only design in neutral colors, but maybe one day I will make my silly scrap version, and I will definitely encourage people to do it like this, to make every section in a different color. It could be really fun. And I'm gonna use, well, Lana Grossa Seta, Meilenweit Seta, and this is like a lilac-y color. And it's going to complete my sock collection for this year. There will still be a sock design, a couple of sock designs for the end of the year, but they're gonna be different. And yeah, so that's actually my next work in progress. I need to properly design this, decide exactly the textures, but I just thought I'd show you this fun swatch. This is a swatch that I made for Lino magazine. You know, they're publishing a 52 weeks book, and it's about scraps. And yeah, I'm not saying anything, but this is a design that I submitted to them and didn't get selected. So I'm going to do it myself because I quite like this idea. And that's it for the designs. So I am going to, now we have sirens. I am sorry. I have quite a lot of videos to film this week before I go on holiday, so I don't have a lot of leverage into when I'm filming. But Mota is behaving rather decently, so that's good. I am going to move on to personal works in progress, to personal projects more likely. Because yes, I do knit a lot, not enough, not as much as I'd like lately, because I've been busy with secret patterns, but I have 2 sweaters that I've worked, which are patterns from other designers. I don't have a lot to say because they're simple designs, but I still wanted to show them to you because I did really enjoy working on them. And the first one is, you can come if you want, just zip it. Wait. You are a cat, you're able to jump. Thank you. What is this? Unbelievable. Sure, claw my legs, everything is, that's fine. This is the Osprey pullover, Osprey from Jacqueline Cieslak. This is a V-neck raglan and all over half brioche. And I really like it. This was really fun to work, really simple. I like half brioche. So half brioche is when you only have one brioche stitch, which you can see here, which is the knit stitch, and the purl is a simple purl. I really like it. It's easier to fix, and it makes a flatter inside because it's not reversible, because it's not full brioche. And I find that the inside here is a bit flatter, so it's not as plump as full brioche, which which makes it a little bit more appropriate here for the temperature, because full brioche is like really cushiony. This is a little bit finer of a fabric, and I really like it. What's this? Did I forget to weave in one end? Did I? I can't find it. Oh yeah, I did. I completely forgot to weave in one end. That's ridiculous. I'm going to do it afterwards. Anyway, because I alternated skeins, and let me tell you, that was a journey. I sneezed and Mota is outraged. Rolled stockinette edgings, and I did work the neckline significantly tighter because it is very open, and she does mention this in the pattern, that you might need to use a smaller needle size because you pick up stitches along the neckline and then you work in stockinette with a center double decrease at the V. I used 2 sizes smaller of a needle. I picked up only 1 out of 2 stitches here on the back of the neck, and I bound off fairly tightly so that I could narrow it down, because if not, it was way too open and it was dropping off my shoulders. But yeah, fairly simple. I'm just thinking if I did any other modification on the sleeve width, but I don't think so. So I used a beautiful color from a French, oh, you can see all the speckles, that's great, from a French indie dyer called La Pelote Vagabonde in their Forêt Noire, so Black Forest colorway. It's more green in real life. It's absolutely beautiful, I love it. This is a sport weight design. Let it go. This is a sport weight design. I only had 3 skeins, and unfortunately one of them was significantly lighter than the others, which I couldn't see as they were in skein form. And I think I should have alternated all 3 skeins at the same time, because what happened is that I alternated skein 1 and skein 2 on the raglan. Then on the sleeves I alternated skein 1 with skein 3, and on the body skein 2 and 3. Is this the same end that I forgot to weave in, or is this another one? Oh my god, I'm gonna have to really check it. You can see it's not as, there's no line in real life, but you can definitely see that it goes from light to dark. And one thing that I noticed, which was very interesting, is that I had to be careful how I was alternating because of the half brioche, because you have one color that is kind of at the forefront, right, with the knit brioche stitch, whereas the purl bumps are kind of in the background. Think of it as if it was 2-color brioche, right? You have on one side you're gonna have, like, if I have a blue and a red, on the one side the blue is gonna be at the forefront with the knit, and on the other side it's the red. And so I noticed that if I wasn't careful to keep the same skein, especially on the sleeves where I was using this lighter skein at the start, I had to make sure that on the sleeves it was still the lighter one that was in the knit stitches, because I alternated every round And so one round I was never knitting those stitches. So if it was the round with the darker color, this meant that this darker color was only visible on the purl lines. And this made sure that there was no harsh, not too harsh of a line. I don't know if I'm very clear. Basically, because all over here, all the knit stitches, they're only knitted with one skein, the same skein, because on the other round where I was using the other skein, those stitches were slipped, so they were not knitted. And yeah, this was interesting. It made me think of, yeah, you do need to be careful when you're alternating, depending on the type of stitches, of patterns that you're using. If you're using slip stitches or color work, for example, it's gonna show differently, and you need to be careful to take into account the pattern if you're slipping stitches, because some stitches are never going to be worked in one of your colors that you're alternating with. But yeah, and my third skein was definitely much darker, which you can see on the body. So yeah, I should have just gotten the 3 skeins and always alternated the 3 skeins from the start. That would have been better. So I'm not 100% satisfied with the my color management in this, but like I said, it's much less visible in real life. Yeah, it's kind of like that in real life. You don't have as harsh of a transition, but you do see that it's darker here than it is at the top. I'm still very happy with it. The color is beautiful, and the pattern was really easy and straightforward. You do need to know how to maintain the stitch pattern yourself, but it's very easy. And yeah, I might make another one in the plain color, I think. I might also want to try and do it in a plant blend fiber, because it's quite a loose fit, and the 3 skeins was plenty for me. In the end, I was afraid that I was gonna run out of yarn. I had this much left when I bound off the hem on the body. And before blocking, my body was so short, it was ridiculous. But now it's like the perfect at the top of my hip length, and I'm really happy with it. So that's one sweater that I finished. And I also knitted a big rib sweater from Jessie Maed. So this is an all over 4x4 rib. This is a drop shoulder with the English tailoring. It's called English tailoring, right? The shoulder detail that is at the back like this. Basically, it's the drop shoulder where, unlike this one, you make a trapezoid at the back and then you pick up stitches from the front for the fronts. And this was, I really don't have much to say about this. This was so easy to just maintain the 4x4 rib. I really like the way all the lines meet with the increases and everything. So I don't have the right gauge. It's a slightly tighter, so I don't have as much ease as I wanted. I was kind of expecting something that would be very flowy. That's not what I got. So I kind of need to rethink how to wear it, because I kind of wanted something very loose, but it's not so loose. It's not fitted either, but I just really wanted a lot more ease than that. The thing is, I used a wool and linen yarn, which is technically a worsted weight, and this pattern is supposed to be worked at a really open, airy gauge. I think the designer uses a brushed or maybe a mohair kind of fluffy yarn, and she works it at a very, very loose gauge, but with the hair and the fluff, it just fills up nicely. Mine doesn't fill up, so I was expecting something very open. It's not as open as I would have liked. But yeah. It's yarn from a French company called Annette Pétavie. That is the name of the person who has the company, and yeah, it's 80% wool, 20% linen yarn, and I think it's 150 meters per 50 grams. I'm not sure. I really liked that unlike most of the linen blend yarns like this is not scratchy, you know. When you have wool and linen blended together, the linen isn't completely merging with the fiber, and so you have all those little bits poking out, and sometimes it's a bit harsh. This is not. This is fairly soft for that type of yarn, and of course it's black, so that's a terrible thing to show you. But yeah. I did modify the sleeve. I picked up more stitches because when my roll gauge was off, so I had to add more length here before I joined back and front for the body. So if I picked up the number of stitches recommended, I really didn't have enough, like it was really too few stitches to pick up along the armholes, and also the sleeves would have been way too tight. And can you not ruin my clothes with your claws? I really have like a problem with most of the designs with the upper arm. Like the upper arm is all like, I always have to go at least 4 or 5 sizes up compared to the body for my upper arm. It's ridiculous. So I basically added 8 more stitches here to the sleeves when I picked up, and now the sleeves fit just right. There you go, really simple pattern. Again, I would do it again, I think, if I can get the right gauge, so I can get the really loose, flowy type of sweater that I kind of wanted. Yeah, so I have one work in progress that I would like to share with you, which is a test knit that I am doing for Rebecca Clow of the Tramea. And this is Heirloom. I hope I'm pronouncing that even remotely correctly. This is a polo or not, like it's a ribbed drop shoulder tee or not. You know, what I really like about her designs, like I really like her aesthetic. I think she's really good at using stitch patterns so that the knitting is really engaging for me and really fun, but she still makes really wearable classic pieces. I really like her work in general. I have many of her designs in my to-do list, and I already test knitted for her at the beginning of the year or end of last year, the Alder sweater. And so when I saw that she was working on it, I immediately decided that I wanted to do it, and I applied for the test and got selected, which I'm really happy about. So this is a ribbed, again, garment, and it is a drop shoulder, again, with the line at the back. And you have the option to work a polo neck or a round neck, and the initial design is made, it's a tee with short sleeves. You can make long sleeves. I am making the polo neck version because I'm obsessed with necks, polo necks and collars at the moment. I have a design which I should be able to talk to you about it soonish, I'm not sure. I've done it a long time ago, and the publication, it was supposed to be for publication, which is not happening, but then they came back, and it's like, there's a thing. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. But it's a short sleeve kind of a shirt, like cardigan, like you open it with a short collar. And I like, every time I see a design with a short collar at the moment, I'm like, yes, I want to make that, I want to make that. And so when I saw this polo neck, I was like, yes, I want it. So this is what I'm making. I'm currently almost done with the second front. So you start with the back. Again, it's this trapezoidal thing. You increase along this line here. Then you work the back. Then you do some armhole shaping. Then you pick up stitches. Move your tail. And you pick up stitches along that shoulder, and seam is sitting on your shoulder blade. Yes, that's the shoulder blade. And you work the front, you work a little bit of, you're gonna sneeze as well, a little bit of neck increases, and then you work straight for the depth of the polo opening. It doesn't have buttons, though I'm sure you could put buttons if you wanted, but I'm not going to. And so I'm currently working on the other front, and then I'm gonna join the two fronts, work a little bit again, the armhole shaping, and then join everything and work the body in the round. So this is a 3x1 flat rib. My ribbing tension is awful. So I don't have the problem of having a much looser purl row, you know. Some people, when they knit flat, you notice that they have a very loose purl row compared to their knit row, so it makes like a awkward stripe effect. I don't have that problem. However, whenever I knit rib, my knit stitches just before the purls are awful. But you need to stop. I'm gonna trim your clothes again. That's what you're getting out of this. Yes. All of my knits have like threads pulled now. So yeah, you can see that knit stitch just before the purl is very loose. It's something that you can fix if you're knitting combination. So combination knitting means that your stitches are mounted the other way. So the leading leg of your stitch, instead of being at the front, so you know when you're knitting through the front loop, right? When you're doing combination knitting, it's at the back. And so when you're making a normal knit stitch, you're knitting through the back loop. But you're not twisting your stitches because the stitches are just reversed. So that's called combination knitting. I used to knit like this until I tried to make twisted stitches and realized, like, I'm not understanding what's happening. And I figured out, oh, that's because my stitches are the other way. And now I'm knitting like the non-combination way. But it is a perfectly valid way to knit if you just know that to make a twisted stitch, you need to twist the stitch actually, and then in this situation, knit through the front loop. And if you're doing ribbing and you're doing your purl stitches combination, so basically you need to wrap the yarn this way. So I'm terrible with clockwise and counterclockwise movements, but basically, whichever way you're wrapping the yarn over your needle, you need to do the opposite, which puts your purl stitch into that combination position. But then you need to be careful not to twist it, so you do need to purl it with the leading leg, which is now at the back. It does make a slightly tighter purl, and so that, for a lot of people, that usually fixes the problem. It helps me. I've tried to do it a few times. It does help me a little bit, but I was too lazy to do it here. And I actually don't quite mind it because it sort of adds one line of texture. So yeah, I don't mind this looser knit stitch here, but just know that if you have that problem as well and it's something that bothers you, you can fix it a little bit with the combination method. Just you'll find plenty of tutorials if you Google combination knitting, and if you just do your purls like this, then it's not so visible. I'm loving this. It's really fun. I am working on a previous version of the pattern. So we started a test knit, and then over the first couple of weeks, I forgot to say, this pattern will come in DK weight and 4-ply, which I really like because I know that the Creabe, she lives in Edinburgh, where DK t-shirts are a good idea. Here, no. And so she decided to also grade a 4-ply version, which I love. And so this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the 4-ply polo neck version. And over the first couple of weeks of the tests, we realized that there were some discrepancies in the numbers. If you wanted the stitch pattern, so the 3x1 rib to flow continuously everywhere. So she had to readjust the numbers, and basically now there's a new version of the pattern. She very kindly like adjusted the test, like it's not a problem. That's why we test, right? She kindly adjusted the deadline, and we don't have to restart with the new version. But I will do something else. So I am working on an old version of the pattern. The numbers for my size are not very different in the new version, but I might have to slightly adjust the number of stitches I cast on at the underarm so that the stitch pattern flows. But just a disclaimer, I am working a version of the pattern that is not going to be the final one, but it's like, I think it's a 2-stitch difference basically. So yeah, visually you're not gonna, my version is still gonna be representative of the design. And yeah, Rebecca Clow asked us to let her know whether we were restarting or not, so that she could get everyone to test the new version as well. But I was pretty far along already, so I didn't want to undo it, and she made it very clear. She's a very good designer to test for. She made it very clear that we didn't have to restart. So I'm continuing with this version for this. And I do want to make a second one in a round neck version this time. I want to do it marled. I have some lace weight in white and beige, and I think it's going to make a nice marled fabric. So I want to try and do this with a round neck, and fingers crossed I want to start it before the end of the test, which is now end of July, so that I have time to also test the new numbers. So that's my plan. But first I need to to finish, or at least get good progress done on this first version, which is going to be a t-shirt with the short sleeves and the polo neck, and the other one I plan to do long sleeves if I have enough yarn. But yeah, I am using Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which, like I said, I love. This is the clover green color, which is absolutely beautiful. Really, really like it. And yeah, it's gonna be so nice. I can't wait to wear this. I have like a vision of the perfect outfit with this, with light grey pants. I think it's gonna be lovely. So this is going to be my evening work in progress now, as we're watching TV at night with my partner. We are currently watching For All Mankind. We are billions of years late to it, but we are loving it. I think it's a great series to discuss. We are constantly pausing the series and chatting about the writing, the character writing, like what they're implying. We're also guessing like what's gonna happen. I'm always guessing what's gonna happen. I'm a terrible person to watch TV and movies with, because I will extrapolate every possibility and I always get something kind of right. So I'm spoiling by guessing. But we're having a great time watching the show. It's on Apple TV. It's a Uchronia. I don't know if that word exists in English, but if you haven't heard about it for some reason, it's retelling the story of the space race, except in an alternative history where Russia actually landed on the moon first, and it just goes from there. And the character writing is really interesting. It's more of a drama where you're following different families that are involved with NASA, etc. And it's really, really good. And like, it's very interesting. Like we must pause 4 or 5 times every episode just because we have something to say about what the characters are going through, how they're reacting to it, how we think it's very interesting that the writers have chose to portray certain topics, certain societal issues, and we are liking it a lot. And I'm doing lots of knitting watching the show. We are currently just started season 3, so we still have a bit left to go. Anyway, that's it. This is a random TV recommendation at the end of this very long, very messy knitting podcast, but yes. I hope you enjoyed catching up. I hope I did drown you in things. If you liked the video and you would like to see other podcasts like this. So like I said, most of my videos are in French. And if you want to follow just the English podcasts, I do put them in one playlist altogether, the English podcast playlists. And I also share on Instagram whenever I'm publishing a new English video. Next one will probably be in September to have a summer recap. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely beginning of summer. I wish you a very happy end of the day, evening, depending on when you're watching this. And yes, take care. I will see you soon. Bye.